Okay everyone, welcome back to the Celtic Way. This is Thursday the 22nd of February and I am Hamish. Ryan is here too as we build ahead to Motherwell versus Celtic on Sunday. Another big game for the team and a chance for them to get 3 big points and hopefully keep things rolling on to an extent. Ryan, how are things today, mate?
Yeah, things are not too bad. The site's looking okay. We've got a couple of pieces out on the website already, but everything's under control. Looking forward to Sunday's game at Fir Park. It's a game that Tony and I will hopefully be attending. So yeah, all roads lead to Sunday, and hopefully Celtic get back to winning ways away from home. You know, they need to bounce back after the Kilmarnock game. They can't feel sorry for themselves. They know the position that they're in now. Every game is now a must win or a must. You know, you can't drop any points in these games now. It's every game's a must win. They know where they stand, and let's hope that they can go and do that.
I think I was looking what we got, is it how many games we got before the split? 7 games before the split, I think. Possible
Like that,
21 points on offer. I think 19, obviously 21 would be amazing. 19 would have us in a really good position. So, you know, 6 wins and a draw from our 7 games before the split. For me, that's what we need. It's a huge ask given we've got Ibrox, Tynecastle, Fir Park, and we kind of look like dropping points every time we play at the moment. But Sunday's a new day, mate. We'll kind of get into it and see if we can make ourselves feel a wee bit better. The big story, just when I was looking, there hasn't been a great deal happening this week, but the big story, I don't even know if it's much of an actual story, but there was a report last night saying that Cameron Carter-Vickers is available for this weekend at Fir Park. Now, whether he plays or not is the big question. He obviously hasn't featured, I think, since, was it Ross County? Was that maybe the last game that he played? Or am I
That
thinking
seems
of
to be it.
someone else?
I think he was taken off at half time in that game. Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, he could return. Where are we with that at the moment? Because he's a very important player, but we don't want to aggravate his injury and have him missing more time.
I'm sort of in this purgatory at the moment because I want to see him back in this team, and you see how much the defence is struggling without a player like him. I would say that any team would struggle without a player of Cameron Carter-Vickers' calibre. He improves everybody in the team, not just the defenders, but I would say the midfielders as well, because he's a good passer of the ball. He's a good distributor away out from defence as well. It's one of Celtic's best players, definitely in their top 2-3 players, I would say. Definitely defensively, he's our best player. But I don't want to rush him back too quickly because I think that's happened before in this season. And you know, you play a couple of games. It's a hectic schedule, and then he'll pull up or he'll aggravate another injury. I just want his game time to be managed effectively, and I only want him back in the team if he's 100% ready and available to be there from now until the end of the season. I know it's difficult for physios to gauge that because, you know, at any point, at any moment, a new injury could come up or a re-aggravation of an old injury could come up. But I want Celtic to be as careful as possible with this player because he's so important. Not that he's made of glass or anything, it's just this season, yeah. It seems, and a bit of last season, he seems to be more injury prone than before. So Celtic have got to find a way to keep these injuries happening to a very, very minimum. You know, he's 26 years old. He's in the prime of his career. I think the news report is probably putting 2 and 2 together, given the time that Brendan Rodgers said that the player was going to be out. They've probably put the dates together and been like, "Oh, he might be available by then," because Brendan Rodgers hasn't spoke to the media yet. It'll be tomorrow afternoon that he does that. But that might be his projected time to come back into the team. Whether he actually makes that team's a very different story. For me, and I know you aren't convinced by him yet, but I think the only change I would make in the defence, if Cameron Carter-Vickers isn't available, is I'd probably swap Welsh out for Nawrowski. I think, good or bad, with how his career's been so far at Celtic, probably in the middle between the two. We've got to find out if he's worth keeping around next season and the season after, if he's going to be a first-team player. Unfortunately, the only way to find that out is by putting him in the team and seeing if he copes with the pressure. So that a bit of an early prediction for the predicted lineups, but I'd put Nawrowski back in for Welsh.
My issue with that is, like, Nawrowski hasn't been injured the last few games. I mean, he hasn't been playing for a reason, and Brendan Rodgers is the one who has that reason, and I'd suggest the reason may be that he was caught out. He looked pretty hopeless, I thought, at Pittodrie in the second half, and at Easter Road he really wasn't much better. You can talk about other centre backs we've had in our books this season having moments, but Nawrocki was right up there for me. So he hasn't been playing for a reason. It's not as if he's been injured and is just back and available for this weekend. So I kind of don't really understand, from Rodgers' point of view, why you would suddenly put him in today. Was last weekend that bad from Scales and Welsh? Quite possibly. It really wasn't great, but Welsh in particular, would Nawrocki make a big difference? For me, it's Nawrocki and Carter Vickers. That's the partnership I really want to see, because that's the one we kind of were excited about and we saw for a couple of games at the start of the season, and I thought looked relatively all right at the start of the season. I know they conceded a few goals. Ross County, I think Aberdeen was the other game when maybe both of them, for that Aberdeen goal, and Miovski won, both of them didn't look great. But I still think that's probably our best partnership, given the kind of calibre of the two players, certainly in Carter Vickers' case. And like Nawrocki was playing with Legia Warsaw last season and has played for like a big club in a medium-sized country in Europe, so he can deal with pressure, hopefully. He just hasn't looked like it in recent weeks. But yeah, for me, Carter Vickers, on him, for me it's quite simple. If he's 100% fit to play, he plays for me, and he starts the match, and maybe if you're a few goals up, he comes off after 70 minutes or whatever, but you don't give him like a half or 60 minutes. Like, I don't think we should do that with centre back. If he's fully fit, he starts the game for me. If he's not fully fit, he doesn't. It's as simple as that for me. I want to go through a few comments and I'll get you back in. Gordon saying CCB must start, Rocky must start beside him, and a partnership must be formed. Scales and Welsh, not the quality at the back that will win us a tittle, whatever that is. Thanks very much, Gordon, for your comment. JK saying, I don't have any confidence going into this one. We could dominate with 10 men behind the ball and get caught out late, as has happened already with Motherwell this season. Pablo saying we need CCV for the rest of the season. Recipe for disaster, bringing him back too early. Bruce kind of saying what I was saying. If he's 100% but just lacking match fitness, give him the last half an hour. Slightly different to what I was saying. Connor asking if he's even fit. I think in the report they did say that he had apparently come through training with no issues over the past 3 days, so I guess that would be a positive.
Yeah, if he's not re-aggravated any injury and he's training with the rest of the team. I don't know if it'll be an individual training or he'll be actual full physical training with the rest of the team. If he's fully fit and available to come back in, yes, no brainer. You play your best players from now until the end of the season. Celtic have got a title to win or a title to contest for. If he's not fully fit and there's any risks with him, then you've got to manage his game time effectively. But like, as much as I don't want to risk him, I think if push comes to shove, he's got to play, and he can do his recovery or his full recovery at the end of the season when the team with the players are away for their holidays. Right now, Celtic need their best defenders in that lineup, and yeah, like you, I wanted to see Nawrocki and Cameron Carter-Vickers in the same team, but obviously that hasn't happened due to injuries for both of them. Celtic have been hit with so many injuries this season. I thought Nawrocki was really getting into his stride at the start of the season. He looked like a real good player. I actually thought the centre-back position looked really good because, you had Scales there that could be emergency backup. You had Welsh that just signed a new deal. Lagerbielke had just been brought into the club. He was highly rated at that point in time. So the centre-back position looked good up until it completely unravelled around about September, October time. And I think that was down to injuries, and then Scales came in and was effectively a first pick for the team. I just want to see Cameron Carter-Vickers back in that team. Tony and I have spoke about how he's the sort of safety blanket, the safety net for this Celtic team, or he's one of them. Things don't happen, or bad things don't happen when Cameron Carter-Vickers is in that lineup. And
apart from against Lazio, that's the only bad thing that's ever happened.
Only reason that happened is because he came back too quickly from injury. So this is the jeopardy that you've got with bringing him back. But there's far less risk, I would say, with bringing him back against Motherwell than bringing him back against Lazio, a top quality side with top quality operators all around the pitch. So if he's fully fit, yes, we've got no issues with bringing him back in. manages game time effectively, don't have him on longer than any time that he needs to be on the pitch. But yeah, he'll be a very welcomed return when he does take to the field once again.
Yeah, a couple of other comments, just moving on to the fullbacks. Neil Lennon's got in touch. Neil Lennon, who loves Neil Lennon so much that his profile pic is Ange Postecoglou. Make it make sense. Maybe the real name is Neil Lennon. Maybe it's the real Neil Lennon.
It's an Ange Postecoglou fan.
Yeah, saying Taylor needs to play the full 90 minutes, a sentence that sums up where we are at the moment. I agree totally. Like Bernabei can't be trusted for me. Simple as that. Taylor has his moments as well, but he's just a much more solid and assured defensive player than Bernabei. Yeah, Bernabei does the odd good thing going forward, and I think he nutmegged Kelly player at the weekend, and against St Mirren he was doing a bit of that. But it's not any use if you're getting caught at the back post. I'm not saying Greg Taylor's like bulletproof at the back post, but he's just a more solid option. I want him playing the full game. I don't want daft subs. I don't know what this new idea that we've had this season. Carter Vickers again against Lazio was a perfect example of subbing players at the 60-minute mark regardless of how the game's going. It seems as if we just have this predetermined idea that a player's going to get 60 minutes or 30 minutes, and we don't actually pay attention to the flow of the game. And I know Greg Taylor might have been knackered and all that at the weekend and all of that stuff, but for me, he's just, we can't afford to have Bernabei playing, even against Motherwell. We can't afford to have that erratic nature, because he's genuinely cost us already. He's not up to it, and I don't want to see him playing again, to be honest.
He cost us against Aberdeen at Pittodrie, because he was the one that originally gave away the ball. I know there's other factors, but you know, it's a double hit because he goes forward with the ball, misplaces the pass, and then he's out of position. He also cost Celtic against Kilmarnock. You know, it doesn't matter if you can, and I know you're saying about he nutmegged a few players and he got forward. If you can't do the defensive basics, then there's no point in being in the team. You know, you were maybe allowed to be a bit more fluid under Ange Postecoglou with the with the inverted fullbacks, but under Rodgers, unless if you're Greg Taylor, which looked to be the case on Saturday, and he was playing a bit inverted, and he was actually having a good game for the 60 minutes, I thought. He was one of Celtic's better players on the day. Then you're playing as a traditional fullback. That's what Bernabei was. When he came on, the control of the game was completely lost, and Celtic were part of this basketball game that's been happening ever since the winter break. There's no control in the midfield or the defence. Everything seemed rushed and panicked, and there was panic all over the pitch. And you know, it was. I've watched that goal about 20 or 30 times. I've put myself through it, watching that goal happen again and again. And it's Bernabei. It's Bernabei that totally loses it. That header. You know, he's bullied, and then there's that long wait between the goal and the VAR check. You know. And I think a lot of the fans in the stadium were resigned to the fact it was a goal. You're like, this is really soft. If this gets given, then where is the game going as a whole? I know we were just talking about the 60 minutes and players were coming off. Tom Rogic was the same. I know Tom Rogic was a bit different, but you know, he burned out after 60 minutes. But it seems to be this sort of physio thing where if a player's just coming back from injury, they'll manage their game time. And I do agree with you that it's weird because the flow of the game can be good and they're playing a good game, but they're already restricted to the amount. Yeah. I know it's already sort of predetermined that they're coming off. So I know I was more annoyed at some of the other subs that happened on Saturday, to be honest. Bringing off Ida and Kyogo, two of your strikers, when you've only got one goal. You know, one goal is never good enough at Celtic Park because you always give the opposition a chance and an opportunity to get back into things. And for me, you know, it's maybe a separate point that we can talk about. I'm not really sure if O's the answer because he comes on in games and I'm not really sure what he's good at, to be honest, because he doesn't really take...
I like him.
See, I like him, but I'm not sure if I like him as a football player. You know, I like him. No, I like him.
What do you like about him? His Instagram feed?
It's quite bare, to be honest.
Yeah. Do you know, I think it's unfair to judge him when he isn't starting games. I mean, he comes on for 10 minutes, 15 minutes here. And he's still giving us big moments this season. Like, he scored a big goal against St Mirren.
St Mirren, and he scored those goals against Aberdeen, but let's be honest, Aberdeen were a shambles that day. They were really, really poor defensively, and capitalised on that. But I've wanted to give him time. It's been a year now. He's been at the club. Yes, he's scored some good goals, but I don't want to compare him to his predecessor, as a lot of people do online, and Giakoumakis. Giakoumakis was scoring goals off the bench. I know he wasn't everybody's favourite player, but he was making sure that he was using those opportunities when he was on the bench and coming off. But with I'm never confident when is up front. I'm never confident that he can get a goal when the going gets tough, and that's just me being perfectly honest. I mean, I want him to turn it around, and he's still young. I think he's 22, 23 years old, so he's still a baby in strikers terms. But at this point in time, I'm never confident when Celtic go with him up front and Kyogo's on the bench. I would be far more confident if Kyogo was on the pitch with a chance 1-on-1 than with and I want him to succeed, but at the same time, not as if I'm losing faith, but he's not really taking his opportunities when they do come, as sparse as they are.
I think in a better team, you'll see a better version of O. I mean, end of last season, O was absolutely fine. He struggled this season in general, but who hasn't in that Celtic team?
It's true.
I can't disagree about the Giakoumakis point. I mean, Giakoumakis was clearly offering much more to Celtic than O has this season. Like, the numbers don't lie. But I think
he's 27, 28 years old.
Yeah,
he knows his position.
O's young-ish. I think in a better team you'd see a better version of O. His issue is he ever going to get a proper run when Kyogo's there? I mean, Giakoumakis arguably, not to hark back to it, but he only really got a run because Kyogo got that injury, didn't he? And that's when Giakoumakis took his opportunity and became a really reliable Celtic goal scorer. So it's going to depend on whether, as horrible as it is to say, whether Kyogo misses a number of games to see whether O gets his chance and takes it. I don't mind him. I think it's harsh to judge him when he's playing 5-10 minutes at the end of games. I think personally he should be ahead of Adam Ida. I think he's got more to offer than Ida. And I don't think Ida's been bad so far. I don't think he's been bad, but I don't know why O's been shunted down to third choice. I think he's got more to his game. I mean, he's like a South Korea international. He plays occasionally for them. Was in their World Cup squad, or I think he was the kind of extra player in the World Cup squad. So he's got. He
was the player that dropped out, so that Son could go in, but he was definitely the Asia Cup. But it's another former Celtic target, Chogi Song, that's their top striker that plays for Midtjylland. By all accounts, is doing a good job over at Midtjylland, but he's a bit of an older striker now. So I think he's about 25, 26. So he's further on in his development than O, but still plenty of time for him to develop. I just don't know if maybe, and people are saying in the comments that maybe a loan deal would be good for him. I've got to say, just on the Ida point, I thought he was, for large spells of that first half, I thought he was really impressive, coming in deep and then playing it off to his fellow strikers in his midfield. Yeah, but at the same time, I don't really trust him in front of goal at this point either. I don't think he's clinical except from 12 yards, and that's something that needs to be addressed.
To quote Limmy, at what cost? Because he does offered stuff, but at what cost? Because you've got Kyogo playing deeper. Kyogo, for me, I'm going to say it every single video, everyone, I want Kyogo on that last defender, stretching the game, making those runs. I do not want to see him dropping into midfield. I'm praying that Brendan Rodgers has seen sense this week and has realised we need to get back Kyogo doing what he does best, and I'm hoping we see some of that on Sunday, because it's just not it for me. I know it's worked to an extent, it worked at St Mirren, and Rodgers was keen to point out that first goal may only have been possible because Kyogo was in a deeper position, but it's just not it. Kyogo, we need him stretching the game. Just to go back to the full-backs, Dennis wondering any more news on Alistair Johnson. I believe Alistair Johnson has to go through a period of no contact training, so I still think we're looking at 2 to 3 weeks for Alistair Johnson. So Ralston's going to get the next few games, I would expect. We may hear different from Brendan Rodgers, but I think it was quite a bad one that Johnson got at Easter Road. Have you get any more big calls for your lineup for Sunday?
Just having a wee think just now, because I've not done the predicted lineups yet. I usually do them after Brendan Rodgers speaks, so you can sort of gauge where
What
the
about
squad's
Iwata,
at.
the saviour?
Yes. In fact, that's the hot take. I think he should be one of the first names on the team sheet, if I'm being honest. As we've spoke about, I feel like I've spoke about it every single podcast since the return of the team from the winter break. This basketball mentality of going back to fourth. There's not a lot of control in the games. I think Iwata could be that player to give Celtic the control. As good as Cal McGregor has been in that position over a number of seasons, I think this is his third season playing as a number six, or sort of an auxiliary number six. He needs to be playing further forward because he just does not have the defensive capabilities to keep up with teams anymore. I don't think. I think he could do it, but I think there has been a gradual decline in Callum McGregor. Alan Morrison put out a piece earlier on in the season that sort of agreed with that, ever so slightly in the percentages, but enough to warrant, maybe a change in his position. Maybe don't give him as much defensive responsibility and give that to somebody who is 26, 27. He's in his prime and he wants to do that. Like, he's a player that isn't really that interested in doing the attacking side of things. I know his goal at Hearts at Tynecastle was an absolute screamer. That's because he was completely unmarked and he was ready to just take that chance. But he's happy in that holding midfield area. That's his domain. He can stay there. He can make tackles. He can make forward passes. He's mobile. I just think there's so much upside with Tomoki Iwata, and Celtic haven't really used it this season. Not all his fault, because he did get injured in that Feyenoord game. That control, and I know he didn't have a good game against Kilmarnock when he started that 2-1 game. The game kind of passed him by, especially in the second half. But I think Celtic need that number six. Every good team has a number six in their possession, and starting at Fir Park, I want to see his name on the team sheet. Gives Celtic more control. Allows Callum McGregor a free role to go further forward. And some of Callum McGregor's best games this season were when, I think it was Hibs, when he was a bit further forward. He looked like a player reborn.
Stuff in, and he looked really good that night. I'll ask this to everyone as well. You can chip in the comments. What do we reckon the issue with Iwata's been? He's obviously had injuries, but why has Brendan Rodgers decided not to play more? Because Iwata was one of the ones away back at the start of the season. He was one of the few international players, overseas players, I'll say, who was in from the start of the season because he wasn't away on international duty. So I was thinking, after the way he'd finished last season, this guy's going to come in, and he didn't make his debut until a long way. He was playing it right back in pre-season, wasn't he? But he didn't really make his midfield debut until a fair chunk into the season. Because I've always quite liked him when I've seen him. He's not.
Me too.
He's not the answer to everything. He's not going to lead us to the league title or anything. But I've quite liked him, and I just want to see more of him.
I think he's one of these players that's fallen through that pitfall that Ange Postecoglou has left. He's one of these players that signed in January. Could say the same for Kobayashi as well, although his time at the club was probably limited due to what he showed on the park. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you remember the two of them actually played at the back together once or twice as well. That's probably nightmare fuel. But and Iwata and Kobayashi are those players that have sort of fallen through that pitfall. That there's a gap that Ange Postecoglou left. There's a new manager that's came in, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, even though they've been at the club 6 months, they're already under the microscope under the new manager. They're like, where their position isn't guaranteed and their future isn't secure at the club. It was such a weird one as well because the club didn't announce him up until days and days after it was official. It was a compulsory buy. Everybody knew that he was signed for the club. It almost felt like an afterthought that Celtic announced the player. And he was a player that was really, really good in the second half of the season. Last season, I thought he was a really, really valued contributor. Some really good performances. A guy that's in the prime of his career. Look, not every player is going to... I know as much as Celtic probably want every player to be a project, this guy's a player in his prime. He's 26, 27 years old. I need to check his date, his birthday for exact, because 26, 27 isn't an age, I get that. But he's just a player that's so reliable, I think, in the team. And I think he deserves a lot more game time than what he's got. Not all of that is his own fault. He has got injured. But from now until the end of the season, I think if Celtic are needing some control in that midfield, which I would say is the case, because the midfield's been getting passed through quite easily recently, then I'd be putting Iwata in. And I know a lot of people in the comment section have been calling for that before, and I would agree with them. Putting any number 6 is better than putting in a player that should be playing further forward, but is covering in that role. As good as he has been the past 2 or 3 seasons. So for me, I'd put Tomoki Iwata in from now until the end of the season, just for that extra bit of control.
I'm praying we see the lineup on Sunday, and it's a midfield of Iwata, McGregor, O'Reilly. It's Kyogo up front, and it's like where you can pick your wingers. You can have Maida would always be in for me, just because he's always going to give you that work ethic. I don't think the other wingers do it. I don't know who my other winger would be. I mean, Thomas here saying I'd give Forrest a run as he's been here his whole career, knows what it takes to win titles. I saw Joe Ledley, who's obviously a former teammate of James Forrest, saying that he can't believe that Forrest isn't featuring more. I mean, say what you want about Forrest, but what must he be thinking right now? The fact that he can't get a game when we're struggling on the wings so much, and he's watching, these players go out and put in, terrible displays. I really don't know what we do with the wings, and no one's jumping out to me apart from Maida. And I know Maida really divides opinion, and he frustrates the life out of me on the ball. But I would always have him in there for that running. I think that can just, even if he's not doing anything with the ball, that running can just offer us so much, especially away from home. I think he scored a few goals at Fir Park from memory as well, so could be a good ground for him. Would he be in your team? And if so, who would the other winger be?
I think I'd play Maida in every single away game, because you need that, because although Celtic are still going to dominate the ball, maybe not as much as at home, they still need to stretch that line and stretch the low block that they'll no doubt face from Motherwell. Either that or, I say that they'll face a low block, but Motherwell actually came out and played the last time Celtic went to Fir Park, and they were unlucky not to get a point, because they did come out, especially after Palma scored that goal. They knew that they had to get something from the game. They had to score to get something from the game, and they did through Blair Spittle, a player that's caused Celtic problems in the past. But the wing position is just not ideal at the moment whatsoever. There is a piece on the Celtic Way website, if you want to check it out, anybody in the comments, about the wing positions. It seems as if a change in formation would be ideal, because at the moment this current formation just isn't getting the best out of those wingers. There's wingers that aren't really playing like wingers that would be better off as number 10s, I think. Palma's definitely one of them. He seems to have the Haksabanovic about him, where he'd be better just behind the striker as a number 10. Celtic need wingers that are going to beat their man, and I think that's what Kuhn was signed for, but we've not really seen that so far from the player. I watched some of his clips again. There was somebody on Twitter, I think it was Liam CSC, saying that he wasn't nearly as bad as what people were making him out to be. I think there was a lot of panic in the ground because of the result, and that's just somebody to target because he hit his man a couple of times. I don't think he was that great, but no, he wasn't anywhere near the level of badness that Palma was in the first half. I don't know if you've seen that highlight reel or of Palma, but it was quite dreadful.
That there was twice that McGregor put the ball on the plate from him. McGregor was free. There was the one you'll remember when he's right in goal and he has to square it for McGregor, and there's another one when McGregor plays it and then goes for the run on the outside of him, I think, and Palma just doesn't pass him the ball.
He's done that
before.
I'm
just thinking last season, like, that's what you want. I'm kind of toying with the idea of Maida and Kuhn being the wingers on Sunday, and let's just see what Kuhn's about, because has Kuhn started a game yet?
Started against Hibs at Easter Road, and he was anonymous in that game.
So he did.
I think it was Jordan Obita was playing against him on that wing, and he had him in his pocket the whole game. Just a physical presence at the back with a wee bit of pace, and Kuhn was pocketed for the whole duration he was on the park. For me, I think Yang's an option, although he's been up and down. Then again, he started the last game at Fir Park.
Torture, innit? This is absolutely torture. Our wingers, like, my God, I can't remember a point when our wing options were so poor. In all
Telio must not be that great then, if he cannot. If he's going out on loan.
Yeah,
I'm sure you'll have a better.
Mikey Johnson, Telio.
Yeah. Well, Mikey Johnson, I did a piece. Sorry.
Folk might be interested. I saw Telio playing the Melbourne Derby on Saturday night, and he actually looked all right. He wasn't that involved in the game, but he did have the best kind of chance where he can hit the bar from distance. He looked all right, but I'll be honest, I can kind of maybe see why he struggled to get some game time. But then again, he probably should have got played a little bit more, but it's good to see Mikey Johnson, Tillio, Palma, Yang. You can maybe start to add Kuhn into that, given what we've seen so far. It's like, my God, we've got a lot of we're stockpiling average players.
They've done a Tierney. They've done a Tierney with the wingers, because
and then some.
They sold Jota for 25 million and replaced them with 4 wingers. At least 4 wingers that I can think of: Yang, Tillio, Kuhn, and there's somebody else, Palma as well. So that's 4 wingers that they've brought in. I'm saying they've done a Kieran Tierney because when Kieran Tierney left, they brought in Volleyball and goalie and Greg Taylor in order to fulfil that position. Whereas, sign a winger for 8-9 million. I know you'd have to spend, you might have to break the wage bracket, but you need to bring in somebody that's good at beating their man like Jota was. Jota seems to be the elephant in the room, or the elephant that's not in the room, but we wish was in the room, because he was just electric last season. And I know the numbers were catching up in terms of Palma and Jota, but they're miles apart in terms of overall player. And I can admit that. I know Tony thinks that I'm part of the Palma fan club, but that's waning quite a bit with his current performances. Jota's been missed this season as much as Hatate and Cameron Carter-Vickers. And I don't like to look to the past too much, but what a player Jota was at unlocking defences, at getting to the byline, at putting crosses into the box. He wasn't a perfect winger by all accounts, but he was perfect for Celtic and what Celtic were looking for. And my goodness, they've missed him this season. I think both have been missing each other, to be honest. Jota's been missing Celtic. Maybe his wages, he won't be missing Celtic too much, but I'm sure for the game time he'll be missing Celtic, and Celtic will certainly be missing Jota. But yeah, the less said about Jota the better, because it's a touchy subject, I'm sure, for many.
Who was the Wolves guy we were linked with in the summer? Left winger. Is it Paul?
Podence, Daniel Podence.
And it's like, we were all saying
Olympiacos.
We don't know how close we were, if we were actually interested, but we were all saying that at the time. There's a Jota replacement, and I guarantee he would have gone on and done quite well for us this season, much better than the players that we signed. So it's stuff like that that's been frustrating this season. But anyway, we'll move on, and we'll return tomorrow to talk more and really get into the Motherwell versus Celtic chat. This video has been brought to you by MPH Group and Navien. A big thanks to them for sponsoring this video. MPH are Scotland's award-winning, family-run, all-trades specialists. They cover mainland Scotland, and they've got a Navien Boiler promotion for you that you'll know about. You get a free Navien Internet Controller, flexible finance options, and much more. Right, we're going to head off. Thanks everyone again for tuning in, and we'll be back this time tomorrow to do it all again.